Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. Our headline for the month was Refinances on the Rise, Sales Good Despite Seasonal Decline. So we talk about the numbers recorded at the Registry of Deeds for the previous month. This show is being taped in November, but we're going to be reporting on October recordings at the Registry of Deeds. I have a great guest in the second segment of the show, Tim White, who's the Assistant Register of Deeds, who will be talking about some of our modernization efforts at the Registry of Deeds and our efforts in the upcoming year, 2020, to handle and show people some of our colonial records that go back to the founding of Plymouth Colony. And in the last segment, we're going to talk about some of our great Plymouth County and Plymouth Colony history. So let's go to the numbers. We always talk about sales for the previous month first. The deeds recorded at the Registry of Deeds. There were 965 deeds recorded in October, more than the 887 recorded in September, slightly less than the 971 last October. We're still down 6% for sales for the first 10 months of calendar year 19. You're going to see a listing of all the sales in Plymouth County for the month, actually, since January. Every community has had sales of property. Plymouth has been number one for a long time, with Brockton being second largest number of sales, but there were 1,543 accounted for here from all the communities, some of which were not for consideration, so they weren't counted in a deeds category. Next image you're going to see is of mortgages. So there are two types of mortgages recorded at the Registry of Deeds. It's what is called purchase mortgages and refinancing, people that have decided to take advantage of low interest rates. Overall, there were 2,658 mortgages recorded in October, more than the 23,002 in September, up 53% compared to last October. So that shows you how much people have been looking to refinance and kind of a mini refinancing boom. So 10 months into the calendar year, the number of mortgages recorded, again, because of refinancing, is up 15% for the year. We always follow foreclosure issues very closely, particularly since the meltdown in 2008. We were very involved in making federal housing counselors, giving them this information, help people modify their loans when they were in trouble, but thankfully that crisis is a lot less by a large margin. There were only 31 foreclosure deeds in all of Plymouth County in October, slightly less than the 33 in September. Again, 46% less than last October, and through the first 10 months of the year, we're 44% lower than last year. And each year, once we get into the stabilization period of 2011 through 13, the number of foreclosures have gone down. There are a lot more people doing counseling before they buy homes, and that has reduced the difficulty. Foreclosure notices are also very low. You'll see the number of foreclosure notices has gone way down from last year. The number of foreclosure notices were only 50 in September, and again, those are down 23% from last year. You're also going to see a list of foreclosures of foreclosure notices for every one of the 27 communities in Plymouth County. Be aware that at the end of this calendar year, on December 31st, our recording fees are going up. This chart is on our website. The state legislature and the governor raise recording fees to give more money to community preservation. And those fees go into effect on December 31st. Our next training room is open to the public on Thursday, December 5th. It's an opportunity for free hands-on training of how to efficiently navigate our site. Be aware there's a free property fraud alert. If you sign up for it, you can get notified if any activity goes on with your property. And we talked about some of our upcoming modernization efforts. And in segment 2, Tim White, who's our first assistant register, will be talking about some of our modernization efforts that are coming out in the near future. So we'll see you in the next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds, Plymouth County. We always try to do something educational or informational in this segment of the show. We've had real estate brokers, we've had surveyors, assessors, a whole number of realtors. But every once in a while, we take a step back and talk about some of our current projects at the Registry of Deeds. I have a great guest with me today. Tim White, who is the Assistant Register of Deeds for Plymouth County, is here today. Welcome back, Tim.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here.
And once a year, we like to update the public of some of our pending modernization efforts.
Right.
So today is a good day to do that. It's very cold outside and very cold in here, but we're ready to move on with some of these things, some that are completed, some that are in progress.
You know, it's great, John, because and I'm sure prior to even when I came in here 5 or 6 years ago, that you always seem to have projects going on and things that will improve the registry's internal and external operations, making it more customer-friendly, more technologically up-to-date, and the types of things that should be done, and you absolutely get them done, so it's great.
Well, some projects move faster than others.
This is true.
Clearly, my goal has been always as a top priority, once we finished our physical plant and moved to our new building and took care of all that down in Plymouth, was to try to get every resource that is available in the building in Plymouth available over the internet. We're lucky to have 2 satellite offices which serve the public, but our role as a registry, since the real development of the internet and government getting caught up with it, is to try to get as many things available for people to search from their home computer.
Yeah, it's a change in the times, you know, from the time you and I started practicing law, the fax machine was just being invented, right, and computers were the size of this room. Right. So it is important that we keep up to date, because that's what the customers are expecting in this day and age. And we still have some things to do, but we are making progress. And as you said, we've got some good projects going on right now.
Yeah. So let's talk about one that was recently completed. It was an outsourced project that actually linked the index information, the image together, so that when someone did the traditional name search or book and page search, that it pulls up the index information and the image at the same time.
And the document. It's so critical to folks that are looking at records, deeds and mortgages and discharges, homesteads, all those types of documents, to be able to not just pull it up in the index and say, well, this is where you would find it at this book and at this page in this registry of deeds that has hundreds of thousands of books and pages in there, but where you can actually then just click a button and that image of that document comes right up on the screen. Right, it's wonderful.
Right. So Plymouth County was founded in 1685. The Plymouth Colony, the settlement based upon the arrival of the Pilgrims or the Plymouth colonists, in 1620 was all colony records from the colony court, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But when the legislature divided up Plymouth Colony into 3 counties, Plymouth, Barnstable, and Bristol County, that's when our county records started. So in 1686, the first deed was recorded, and that image going forward till current, all that information comes up when you search.
Book 1, page 1, right up to today.
Right, right.
Yep.
And that's a great asset
It
to
is.
have, and a great, people don't come down to search around in the registry anymore. I remember when I first got elected, there'd be dozens of people coming around in the aisles, pulling books, pulling index books, and doing it all by hand and copying them over. Now you can just go right online and take a look at them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great advantage.
And so another project that is almost complete for the first phase is our transcription project. You want to talk a little bit about that?
This one's close to my heart. I just love the idea of the old records that we have, whether the old Plymouth County records or obviously the Plymouth Colony records. The original records, there were no typewriters. There were no computers. I mean, everything was written in hand. And to be able to go through those records is a real privilege. And some of them, they're so old that the pages are a little tough to read. There were a few folks back then that didn't have the greatest handwriting, but for the most part, the handwriting is just beautiful. But it's what we've done now, or we're in the process of doing, is having not just having the index and the document itself, that handwritten document, linked together. We're also going to have linked to it a transcription, a typed transcription of that handwritten document that you just click another button. And we've got through, as you said, basically stage 1 of that progress, and it's great to be able to do that and not have to decipher what you're seeing in hand, that you can actually now just read it in a typescript.
And we hope to have that loaded onto our off-site system very soon.
That's our goal,
Yeah.
hopefully within the next month or two.
Yeah, a couple weeks, hopefully.
Yep.
So people aren't learning how to write and read cursive. Certainly most of the generation as genealogists will be able to struggle through and read some of them.
Right.
Though they're really hard to read, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
even though it's like artwork. It's so well written.
It is, and when you have the transcription, you can go to the transcription, you can read that, and then you can go to that handwritten document, and it really helps you decipher the words and what is in that document.
Yeah, so phase 1 will get us up to a little, about around 1814 from 1686. And again, we hope to have that available for the public search within a short time period.
Yeah, we do.
And then the third project that is also underway at this time, along with other internal server changes and upgrades of our equipment, is the ability to view the colonial records along with an index of the colonial records.
Right, and that up until this point in time, there's been basically no index at all.
Right.
You know, you've just had to kind of go in blindly and start going through all of the different books that they have, whether it's the court orders, the laws, the deeds, the wills. I mean, all of these documents are in different books, and without any particular order, that is, other than they try to keep them chronological, even though they're not all chronological.
Yeah, so we're starting with the deeds.
Yep.
Again, in the 1620s, up till the division of the colony into the 3 counties.
Yep. Yep.
So good.
So-
And again, that's a work in progress. It's not as enormous a project as our other records, because there are only 12 volumes.
Right. Right. You're only talking 65 years.
Yeah. So I know, speaking of colony records, you've had a lot of interesting views of the colonial records, and you've kind of been bringing them forward on a monthly basis for our newsletter.
We have.
And for this show, we have something coming up in the later segment of this show, the Colonial Record of the Month. And we're getting more and more people ready to come see them as we get closer and closer to the turn of the year into 2020. So let's tell our viewers a little bit about what that experience has been like.
Sure. When I first came to the registry, the colonial records were kept in the commissioner's office, and they weren't kept in a particularly environmentally friendly way, should I say, so that it would best preserve them. But with the assistance of the county commissioners, we've been able to build a temperature and humidity controlled vault to store those documents in right on site at our Plymouth registry.
Through a grant authorized by the Secretary of State's office.
A technology grant that came through Secretary Galvin's office. In addition, we've got a reading room that we developed for it as well. We purchased a little display case to display the Colonial Record of the Month. So that having that on site has really opened up the door for us to kind of really dig into these records a little bit more. And the timing couldn't be better with the 400th anniversary of the landing of the Mayflower, in Plymouth Harbor, coming up in 2020. This is a great opportunity for us to show off these incredibly historic records that the Smithsonian Institute would love to have. I mean, they're just so special, so unique. We have the oldest deeds that exist in the country. Mm-hmm. And a lot of records of the firsts, for example, the first highways that were built.
First trial by jury.
First trial by jury. And
first public works project.
First
the canal.
First public works, first ferry.
Yeah, right, sure.
Fella got to haul people across the Jones River for a penny. And these records do tell the story as to what life was like back in the 1620s and 1630s. And it's remarkable to see the types of things that went on that were important back then to them. And you think about, for example, the Pilgrims coming across the ocean for religious freedom, and yep, that was important. But once they got here, it was like, well, it's okay, except that if you're practicing with Quakers, we're going to pass a law that says you can't do that. And I mean, some of the other laws, you talk about the Salem witch trials, well, there was a law against witchcraft in those original records. So there's just a fascinating plethora of different types of stories that are told about people, including their names. I mean, like, for example, we have Miles Standish's will.
Sure.
Most folks know who Miles Standish was, one of the most important pilgrims that landed here to help establish what became Plymouth Colony.
Yeah, well, as we make the turn into the new year, which is several months away, but something that's coming on a lot faster than from 4 years ago when we started talking about it, we will have more visitors to see the records. We're looking at doing something with some of our local museums, possibly to share that information with a wider group of people, and we all hope it comes together at the right time. For anyone out there looking to see the programs that are going to be happening next year, there's an organization called Plymouth 400 that is putting together a number of signature events. If you go to their website and look it up, you'll see a whole number of things that you might want to participate in, and very exciting times.
It is. I mean, especially to be around for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, couple things that we might be doing in the future you want to talk about?
Well, we're certainly going to be working towards making a better presentation for our records for the Plymouth 400. We recently came into possession of a digitalized copy of one of the maps from the 1630s through the State Archives, again through the Secretary Galvin's office. We are taking a variety of records, and we're going to sort of pick out highlights from the records and hopefully have them made into either posters for the walls or for easels so that we can tell the story, using the actual poster board with hopefully some photographs of the original records, the ones that are clear enough to read from the 1600s. And that's something I didn't mention is that these records, they're from the 1600s. And to have them still exist, never mind in the condition they are, is quite remarkable. And I think it's a credit to the state legislature who back in the early 1800s, in 1810, 1820, recognized that these documents that were now almost 200 years old were falling apart. And you can see on the edges are just crinkling away, in some cases worse than others. And they, in their wisdom, voted to approve funding to have these records preserved, where they were interwoven into larger documents and inserted into books.
And bound.
And bound. They used it was nice, they used a local company down in Fall River or Taunton. And the fact that they did that is why we have those records today.
So I think it's great. We're hosting the Plymouth County Assessors meeting tomorrow in Plymouth. And the first thing they want to see are the colonial records.
Yeah.
So we'll be meeting them in our lobby and then bringing them upstairs to our colony records storage area and viewing area. And I know you've prepared some for them to see, and that's just an example of how excited people get to see the foundations of our country in the records that we have.
Foundation of our government, how we
Yeah.
operate. Like you said earlier, the first right to trial by jury law passed, and
Great.
So
thank you for coming on again. As
You
always,
bet.
We'll keep up the fight.
great to be here. Thanks for having me,
We'll
John.
come back again in
2020.
and let everyone know what's been complete and what lies ahead of us then.
Sounds great.
Again, we're really looking to get every resource available in our building, available on the internet.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the goal of these things.
Yep.
So,
And we are getting closer and closer to
thanks
that.
for your help. Welcome back to the Registry Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. I want to thank Tim White for the great job he did in the last segment, talking about some of our modernization efforts and about some of our efforts to promote the colonial records as we go into the 400th anniversary year, 2020. We've had a lot of interest from people coming in to see records from their ancestors all around the country. There are millions of people that have pilgrims as ancestors from the Standish to the Alden to the every number of the Mayflower has their own organization, and we expect to see more of them as we go forward. This segment of the show, we always do something lighter in nature. Our holidays for the month, we had daylight savings time ending on the 3rd. Election Day in many of the communities was the 5th. Veterans Day was the 11th. Thanksgiving is coming up on the 28th. Black Friday on the 29th. So let's talk about some of our notable land records and one of our colonial records. The first one I'm going to talk about, because we had Election Day this month, is Grover Cleveland. He was a landowner in Plymouth County. He was the only American president to be defeated for office and come back and later serve a second term. He was the 22nd and 24th president. He's known for his enjoyment of the outdoors, good food and beverages, and that's where he made his connection with Plymouth County. He was a duck hunter and fished while staying at the Idlewild Hotel in Manomet Bluffs. When he began his first term in 1884 as president, he caused quite a stir by marrying a young woman who had been a friend of his, only aged 21. He lost his re-election bid to Benjamin Harrison, in parts due to prohibition. campaigning about his lifestyle, but in between terms, he purchased a parcel for a summer cottage, did not build it. He went on to Buzzards Bay, where he lived with his wife, and is again the only president who was re-elected after having been defeated to office. There's a Plymouth County resident that's been getting a lot of attention at the State House as of late. She was a woman veteran in the Revolutionary War. There's a discussion on the State House to create a statue of her in Boston at the State House. Her name is Deborah Sampson, and she was born in Plimpton, oldest of 6 children, and she dressed up as a man and enlisted in the 4th Massachusetts Regiment, enrolled as Robert Shirtliff. Her wartime experience brought her injury as well as some very close battles. She was wounded 3 times. She was honorably discharged by General George Washington. She later was married and moved to Sharon, and she gave birth to 3 children, and she died at the age of 66. Her likeness adorns the flag of the town of Plimpton, and there's a monument in her honor on the Plimpton Town Green, and I hope she gets recognition statewide, more so. There is a Deborah Sampson Day, but I hope there is some recognition with a statue at the State House, because she was quite a woman of service and was one of the first women to do that in our armed services. The next notable record, as we get closer to the Thanksgiving holiday, is John Alden. John Alden was one of the original pilgrims. At the age of 20, he was a cooper aboard the Mayflower and came to America. He settled in the new colony rather than going back, and was an assistant to the governor. During the division of lands in 1627, he moved to Duxbury. There's an Alden Museum there, the Alden House, and title was acquired in the name of the Aldrin Kindred of America. John Aldrin would be well known if any of you read The Courtship of Miles Standish by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. When Miles Standish was courting Priscilla Alden, John was the carrier of the news, and Priscilla fell in love with John, and that's a very famous poem. You might want to brush that off for Thanksgiving. And last but not least is one of our colonial records that goes back to 1642, and it is a decision of the colonial court to establish the boundaries of Marshfield. It's quite a beautiful record, as you can see in the handwriting transcribed on the left-hand side. The boundaries of Scituate had already been established, and this was broken off and established one of our oldest towns in Plymouth Colony and then Plymouth County, the town of Marshfield. So I want to thank Brockton Cable Access for my 109th show. We do one a month. Mike Simmons worked today with me, all hands on deck in the recording station as well as the cameras. This CD will be sent to me. I burn copies and send it to cable stations all around Plymouth County to share with people what for most people is information about their most valuable asset. So have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next month.